Beth says, "Look, Mr. Rodrigo, here is all the paperwork for your property, and I want you to read it very carefully, review it, and I know that this is the property of your dreams, and you're dying to be able to buy it. So, do you review it carefully and sign it, please?" Rodrigo says, "I understand, Mrs. Beth, but let me ask you a question. Whenever I come here, this girl is sweeping, cleaning things, kind of weird. Who is she?" Beth replied, "She is my daughter, she is always here helping me." Rodrigo answered Beth, "But I think this is absurd, she should be studying and not here helping you." Beth replied, "No, Rodrigo, calm down, she studies in the morning, but in the afternoon she's here helping me, and I don't see any problem. At her age I already did a lot at home and that never bothered me, to be the lawyer I am today." Rodrigo says, "It's don't a bet, but you're showing up those poor people who only have children to bring them into the world." "But Rodrigo, I already told you. She studies in the morning. And did she see that it helps me in the afternoon here? And I don't see any problem. But it seems that you only want the girl here to help you. You have this big real estate agency, why doesn't it hire someone to do this service? That she really has the competence to be working, not a child." Beth says, "Look, Rodrigo, she's my daughter and I know what's best for her and you can rest assured." And he replied, "It's Ms. Beth, but it's a little weird, right? But everything is fine." Isadora, come closer, ask, "Young man, do you want some water?" He replied, "Look, young lady, you know what your mother is doing is an exploitation, and child, you can't be working like that, no." Isadora replied, "No, my mother is not exploiting me. She brings me here in the afternoon for me to help. And do you want a glass of water?" He replied, "What do I accept?" "A glass of water." Beth says exactly that, "My daughter will work for you to buy you that toy you want," and Rodrigo said, "Wow, you are ridiculous, right? Do you have money to buy a gift for your daughter? And whatever she wants, but you're putting her to work. It hurts my heart, you know?" Isadora comes back and says, "Young man, here's your water." Beth tells Isadora, "Daughter, go to the office and get that contract sheet, please." And the girl leaves? Rodrigo says, "Why are you doing this with a child? She should be taking an English course, or doing something else, you're putting her to work. I don't accept something like that, see?" Beth replied, "So, Rodrigo, are you going to read the contract or not? Or are you going to guess? Where are you not called?" He says, "I don't sign any contract, because I feel offended, it doesn't match the kind of life I want. And I'm going to do better, I'm going to call the tutelary council, I'm going to come here with the police. Look, have a good time, see? Betty, speak. Do not. Rodrigo, do what you want, but I'll take care of my daughter." Isadora, ask, "Mother, was that man treating you badly?" My mother asks her daughter, "Do you think I exploit you?" The girl said, "Of course not, Mom, I love coming here, because I earn my money," and Beth says, "Our daughter, I'm glad you think so, give me a hug." On the phone, Rodrigo says, "It's from the tutelary council, it's because I have a complaint to make. So here's the thing, I'm in a real estate company here and I was a client. They are with a child that I think is exploitation. The child is not even old to be working here? With mom exploring. I'm going to give you the address here, because I think it's absurd. I think there must be a lot of people who share the same opinion as mine. And it's almost 7 o'clock at night and the child is still working. This is wrong. I'll send the location here." Beth says, "My daughter, I think it's about time we left. Let's get ready to leave." The girl said, "Okay, Mom, I'm going to organize things and get the papers over there. And I'll be right back." Rodrigo says, "I've already given the address and these guys don't see it." A girl appears. And she says, "Hi, see you, Rodrigo?" He replied, "Yes, it's me. I was the one who called the guardianship council." She replied, "Great pleasure. My name is Kayuri." Rodrigo says, "Look, we're over there, let's go there, because she's about to close the office." A man comes up and says, "Wow, he's being silly, huh?" He takes his cell phone and runs away. The man said, "Lady, he took my cell phone." Kyuri says, "Look, young man, it's dangerous here. We can't stay here." Betty hears the screaming and says, "Wow, what's going on? Rodrigo, what happened?" He replied, "Beth, unfortunately I was here inside the gallery, a thief passed by and stole my cell phone." Betty says, "Wow, Rodrigo, come in here, let's get some water. And you show who you are?" "Is it over there?" he replied, "I'm from the Tutelary Council, I'm here because I received a complaint." Bet said, "Denunciation of what?" Kyuri replied, "Because Rodrigo called me and he said that you are enslaving your daughter, is that true?" Beth replied, No, that's a lie. My daughter studies." Kyuri says, "Ma'am, I'd like to come in so we can clarify some things. I can enter?" Beth replied, "Yes, sure, come on in." Rodrigo says, "My God, and now, what am I going to do with my cell phone? All my work stuff is there." Beth says, "Look, Rodrigo, that's why I put my daughter to work with me. So that this doesn't happen to her in the future. And she doesn't need to steal and not do any of that." Kyuri says, "Then you need to clarify some things. And what is your daughter working with, exactly?" Beth responded, "She studies in the morning and in the afternoon she comes here, she goes to the floor. Does she get a glass of water for a customer? And I don't trust leaving my daughter with any nanny. Look, I'm not enslaving my daughter, I bring her here because the last nanny. Was he teasing her? And I didn't accept that. And since I have no one to leave it with, I bring it. And here she just does one thing or another and she's here, working and earning her own money. And she buys things for herself, and it's not that I let her lack things." Beth turns to Rodrigo and says, "Look, if Rodrigo, I think if you weren't minding other people's lives, you wouldn't want to seal it. And I think you must be wanting to do this to put it on the internet, right? But that has nothing to do with it. And if you had stayed here and signed the lease, you might as well have been on your cell phone." Rodrigo agrees and says he was hasty and I thought it was something and it wasn't. Please forgive me. Isadora says, "Lady, you're not going to separate me from my mother, are you? I'm just here playing and learning." Kyuri says, "And of course not, from what I understand, nothing is happening here, but do I need to follow this more closely?" Beth replied, "Yes, sure. You can arrive anytime you want. In seeing everything straight, because everything is straight." And Kyuri turns to Rodrigo and says, "I think your complaint was baseless, but even so, thank you for having triggered the Tutelary Council." Rodrigo speaks, "I'm sorry for anything. I'm sorry too, Miss Beth. And I want to continue with the contract. If you allow me." Beth replied, "No, Rodrigo, that's fine. But now I want you to come back tomorrow, because we're closing now. And we can't mess with that paperwork anymore today." Kyuri calls Isadora, says, "Look, little girl, I want you to listen to what I'm going to say now. I want you to always listen to your mother's advice. Because she will always want your good." Isadora agrees. "And everything she teaches you about the office you can learn, okay? Because it's very important, and maybe you will need it in the future. And I already love it. Hug your mother and say, thank you for everything."